Welcome to the AI Chronicles Season 2, Episode 1. Today, we delve into the dead internet theory and explore how artificial intelligence is reshaping our digital world. We start by unraveling the future of computing with AI hardware integrated into new computers. What does this mean for the future of personal computing? Next, we discuss the impact of artificial intelligence on various aspects of our lives. From automation to data analysis, AI is revolutionizing the way we interact with technology. In our final segment, we explore the mysteries behind the dead internet theory. Is the internet truly dying or transforming into something else? Stay tuned to find out. And now, say hello to my two favorite humans, Jay and Keith. Take it away, humans.
Welcome in, friends, to this Season 2, Episode 1 of the AI Chronicles. Say hello to my good friend Keith. Keith,
we're back.
How are you doing, sir?
I mean, I think at this point, that was 100% automated. You might as well just phone it in from here. I mean,
right.
Yeah. So
can you say how excited we are about
surprise?
that?
Yeah. So, So we're Season 2, everybody. More to talk about. I think we've said the whole time when there's stuff to talk about, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Did we have a cliffhanger last season?
I don't remember how we left.
I don't know if we did or not, but
one almost a year later. I was looking, it was like July. We're getting close to, it was a year ago when we released our last episode. So lots happened. That intro, that was Alan, by the way. Alan is not real is, I guess, open to perception. He's not a human. If you're looking at this on the video side, that was all done by, it's just all AI created. All of it. The backgrounds that you're seeing now, the artwork, all of it.
And so for someone like yourself, and of course I'm just a spectator with all this stuff, man. And I say that with high regard for your knowledge of the industry, Keith. And I love to be taught how to use this stuff. It's fun because, so in case you guys haven't picked up on our other podcast, which is the Counter Show over on our automotive channel, please go to youtube.com/Parts Counter Gurus. You can find that podcast as well as this one. Same platforms. Just look for us. But it's exciting to watch us grow, even just us watching ourselves grow in this industry. And honestly, I think AI has certainly helped us catapult into a different world of how we can get this information out to you guys. So it's been exciting for me as a spectator on the side to kind of watch Keith go, hey, man, have you seen this? And I'm doing the research on this. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, next podcast we're going to be using these these technologies. So it's fun, man.
Yeah, a lot of it is it's a tool. It's a tool like you would use to change the tire and get the lug nuts off, or any other tool, right?
Absolutely,
Paintbrush to paint your house, or a roller, and garbage in, garbage out. The better you get with the tool, the better the product will be. I put in a synopsis. I knew Jay and I had picked out topics that we wanted to bounce around. I fed that into a platform. That platform wrote a script, basically an outline.
Right.
And then I went, let's just see if this thing can read it. And then sure enough, there was a feature for that. And then I got to pick from, I don't know, half a dozen different voices. And some of them sound more artificial than others. I thought Alan was fairly realistic.
I like Alan. I mean, he reminds me so much of Kit, you know?
Yeah.
I even asked you that when I heard it the first time, and I asked you, I said, is that Kit? And he goes, no, it's not. It's Alan, but, I get it. But, so here we are.
Which I guess in and of itself is a good thing that we are still here and have not been overrun by the machines yet.
This is true yet, but we're going to get into that in greater detail about about where this is headed and when it started heading that way. And there's some exciting things coming down the pike for you guys, and we'll get into those topics here very soon as a consumer. And I can tell you that, for computers are being manufactured and developed, the technology developed for a generation that can thrive using that. And so for any of you guys that are, and I'm not saying that you're not knowledgeable and can't figure things out, just understand that it's kind of almost like the era of going from the 50s into the 60s and 70s where rock and roll became a big thing. Well, the older generation just couldn't grasp that and wrap their brain around what the kids saw in this. So, and when I say that, the younger generations are really going to thrive with this, we hope. And we're going to get into some of the policing aspects that need to occur across the board from a global standpoint in order to protect us from some potential nefarious activity that could go on with this. So,
I mean, I'm not condoning use of substances, but if you do get into exploratory altered states, this might be a good time to go ahead and...
Man, do you remember that movie, Altered States?
No, vaguely?
Yeah,
Vaguely.
I think Kiefer Sutherland. No, not Kiefer Sutherland. Same guy that was Starman.
Oh, yeah.
They were suspended in this liquid thing. It was called Altered States. That was a really, really good movie, man. I'm gonna have to go back and check Prime and see if
art imitates life.
Yes, indeed, man. So, yeah. So, where do you want to dive into? Well, first of all, you've got people you want to mention, right?
Hi, Chuck.
We're back.
I think he told us we needed to do another one of these. So
he did, and we appreciate Chuck so very much, man. He's part of the team, guys. So
I will say, I mean, at some point, I feel like if I don't thank the AI, it's just gonna shut the content down. We use AI so much now. We use it to help with titling our YouTube videos over at youtube.com/partscountergurus. I use it to make the chapter markers in those videos. We actually take the entire video, and we'll probably do it for this podcast as well, dump that into a piece of technology, a tool, and it spits out, it does voice analysis, it does text transcription of what we say, it identifies who said it, it knows who I am, and then it highlights who's speaking so you have a full script. And then I can say, write a summary based on this, and it will write that summary in a format that does well in the YouTube algorithm, which is something we're going to get to at the end. Here's that sneaky algorithm again.
Was it like a year ago, Keith, whenever you and I started really? Yeah, I guess it was like a year ago because ChatGPT came out, and that's when we started the series 1 or season 1 of this AI Chronicles, and that's when we started diving into the AI tools that were out there, and you and I embraced it because we just kind of felt like when you're growing, you get busy, and in order to keep the growth moving along, this is a positive side of this that has been for us, which has enabled us to continue to grow at a much quicker pace and provide a quality product at the end of the day. And so there are some positives from AI. And this is an example of it.
And, there's also the thing we're worried about, which is some of the big bad negatives. I mean, at some point, and we joked, I think, in the first season.
You mean like Skynet?
Right. That this was coming. I mean, so here.
This is not really me. It's a fake that was completely generated by artificial gibber.
That's just crazy. I mean, it sounds just like you, man. And I've known you for what? 20 years? Close to 20 years?
At what point does that call my wife and demand ransom money?
Right. Well, that's already happening, dude. I mean, that sort of stuff is already happening. I mean, the fake calls, man, are happening, and unfortunately, there are, our older generation, and it's not just. And don't get me wrong, folks out there. If you are a senior, in your mid late 60s, early 70s, I'm not saying that you're not aware of things, but you're not into the technology as much as we are. I mean, we dive into it and try to understand it, and it can easily get somebody off guard and end up depleting your bank account.
So I'm not going to name names. I hope I didn't just bumped a button, and I hope I didn't just turn off the internet. But
I hope you didn't either, man.
I will say, on the scary side of this, and we talked both sides. There is a major healthcare company in the United States, might be the largest, pretty massive data breach that happened a month and a half ago. And I was reading, one of the reports I read said 40%. This is mind-boggling that they had information on 40% of all Americans. That they were so big and had such a reach and had so many companies under their umbrella that there was about a 50-50 chance that you were in their database. Wow. Which got breached. So I've just gotten to the point where, I went to a walk-in clinic a couple months ago, and they required me to give them open access to my bank account and credit card and store it and charge me, and I just was like, no. And so I'm playing a dangerous game right now because they are trying to force me to create a profile in their system, which will end up getting hacked at some point. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
And I don't want to do it. And so I think, and I'm not positive, but I think that there's a balance remaining on my account, but they won't just send me a bill. And I keep telling them, send me a bill. I'll pay it. And they're like, no, we don't know how to do that. Just go in, create a profile, give us all your personal information, and then you can see the bill in our portal. And I refuse to do it. Because I don't want to be hacked. So you were talking about the data breaches and the seniors, and I think this is where that breach gets even worse. Is we just found out now on the Windows side. So Apple we'll get to in a minute, but on the Windows side, Microsoft has made an announcement that they're going to start putting AI hardware into computers, starting with laptops. Now, you might say, well, I already have I have Siri if you're on the Apple side, or I have Cortana if you're on the Windows side, right? That's different. That's software. So they're building AI-powered hardware. Think of microchips, okay? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's in there and it's always on. So it takes a little bit of work, but you can go into your iPhone and you can turn off Siri, or you could go into your Windows PC and turn off Cortana, and it's supposed to then just stay off, right? Mm-hmm. This is different. This is an always-on thing. It's baked into the computer itself.
Yeah, and when I was looking at the information that you provided me for this particular podcast today, I was blown away. Remember when, because Keith and I are always upgrading the tools that we have in our toolbox, speaking of laptops, cameras, etc. And so we have to be very mindful of what are the capabilities, because we're going to push it to its limits. I mean, we're frying fans and motherboards and that sort of stuff. So my question to you, Keith, is that they obviously will have to integrate when they integrate this into that hardware, what we would seem as an upgrade in years past, like going from, say, 8 gig to 16 gig, and I'm talking about RAM, virtual memory, guys. And now I would assume that because of all of these things that are going on in these things, that's going to exponentially increase just as a default right out of the can, right?
So they'll probably do what they've they do on graphics cards, which is it has its own dedicated memory. It won't pull from the random access memory that's on the motherboard for the operating system. It will have its own chipset of memory that's dedicated to this particular. So they're calling it Recall. Microsoft is calling it Recall. And the concept is that it has a photographic memory that's searchable. So this thing is going to remember everything that you've done.
Ooh.
Okay?
Ooh.
And let's see here.
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me, before you get to that. So you mean like let's specify remembering everything you've done, like physical work, like writing, say a letter or an email, or creating some sort of flow chart that it's just stored there. Like, I mean, does that include like what Google's already doing, paying attention to what site you're going to? And
you're asking all the right questions, Jay. And this is the thing, man. Jay comes. We spend a pretty fair amount of time in prep for these shows. I know it looks like we just show up and like we come in hot and hit start. Jay's all worried that he's like, well, kind of not familiar with the subject matter here.
I'm a spectator, man. I'm telling everybody that.
I
enjoy the tools, though.
So, a couple things. The direct answer to your question is we don't really know, and they're probably not going to fully tell us. Kind of like Facebook didn't fully tell us that they were pumping everything that it recorded up to the cloud. Remember that? They tried to tell us, it was all on the, in the software. And guys were like, wait, so you've got the entire, music library of the entire world on my phone in your Facebook app? That's how you're doing song recognition? Anyway, so
yeah.
Manufacturers have some leeway to build these how they want. And there are guidelines. And this was to your first question, which is this thing going to have its own RAM? Is it going to borrow RAM from the operating system? Some of that's up to the design of the manufacturer, just like a car. How do you want to deliver power to the drivetrain? Do you want it to be a front-wheel drive or a rear-wheel drive? You want a rotary engine? How are we going to do this, right? There's a million ways to get there. And some of that is up to the creativity of the hardware manufacturers, but it's got to have a neural processor, which is what they use for their AI and all that. But in all likelihood, this will start, Jay, in areas like we started the show talking about, like you already have, where you go to text me, and because you've sent me the similar messages, it autofills from your history, right?
Right.
Like it knows that you always end sentences with me or start sentences with me in a certain way, and so it suggests those, right?
That's right. Yep.
And the same for me. I'm not picking on you. So I use this all the time in email composition, and it lets you it'll finish your sentence for you. And it's going to remember your preferences. Okay. So, but then this gets really dicey. Is it using cloud modeling to then make suggestions, and is it sending your information out to the cloud? And this is,
Are we to a point, man, where like every day at 9 a.m. you visit Pornhub, and then it remembers that, and all of a sudden it makes a statement. It asks you, "Would you like for me to bring Pornhub up?"
There's that, but then it'll go a step deeper, and it will know that you're into. I'm trying to think of something that would be humiliating to you. You're into donkeys and giraffes or whatever, right?
right.
And so it's just going to have that at the ready. It's going to go, here's based on your recent search history. And
I jest, man, but that's the truth, though, right?
So this is where it gets dicey, is if you're an executive of a company and you're writing an email that's an internal memo, or it's an email to your shareholders and maybe they have external addresses, and you're talking about confidential secrets, Bob Iger's working on the next big Disney theme park ride or experience, or the next Star Wars movie or whatever, and that gets sent out to the cloud and it gets hacked. Because again, all these companies, we started the show talking about how they all tell you it's going to be secured. It's just a matter of time until it isn't, right?
Right.
Or you're a doctor, and you're sending information over to one of your you got to send x-rays over to a lab. You got to send test results over to a lab, or the lab has to contact you for results, right? And today those healthcare companies have processes in place to secure that transmission. They can't, Jay, your doctor can't just like email your x-rays. Your dentist can't email your x-rays to the lab.
Right.
It has to be encrypted, okay? But the problem is, if you're putting this neural, AI software and it's remembering everything you do, their words, not mine, at what point does it keep a copy of Jay's x-rays and somebody does a data breach and finds out that he has an extra tooth or, whatever? I mean,
right.
It gets kind of nuts, right?
It does. That's insane to think about, but that is definitely what could go on. And you think about this, the privacy factor of, say, entertainers, right? Entertainers in general, period. In the entertainment industry, these folks are obviously, they hate the paparazzi. They're up their butts all the time trying to get the story. But gosh, man, I mean, if they're on a computer that has this type of technology and they're dumping all kind of personal information in it, who's to say that someone smart enough couldn't get their hands on that? Next thing you know, P. Diddy's
Someone
in the hallway
will.
in a towel,
Yeah,
right? P.
someone
Diddy's out
will,
there
and
doing
it's
what he shouldn't
just
do.
a matter of time, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, man. Persistence, patience, and time. Mm-hmm. There is no door that is unhackable. There is no safe that is unhackable. If you have the determination, you will get in. And throughout our history, it has been sometimes in the most simplistic ways that nobody thought of. With the famous Motorola hack, where the guy just called the front, just got a secretary and said, "I forgot my password,"
Yeah.
And didn't even, it was just over the phone given to him, and he ended up with blueprints for a lot of the Motorola proprietary stuff. So it's absolutely going to end up out there.
Do you think though, on the other side of that from a standpoint of additional securities in place where we're going to put more authentication instead of just, two-part authentication, it becomes even deeper than that? Will it have to? I think it will, because of this technology.
I mean, yeah,
I mean, seriously. I mean, it's like the keys to the bomb, man. Who's got the
briefcase?
Yeah,
the suitcase, the football. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's getting to that point, and somebody's going to have to reel it in a little bit, and we got a problem here. So, I mean, the security aspect is crazy.
Jay, they've already they've already got the colonoscopy in a box that they'll send to your house, right?
Yeah, don't tell me that, man. I just found out. Never mind. You know where I'm going with that.
Yeah. So
next time,
let's just put the sample meter on everybody's smartphone, and
right.
I mean, you guys are already taking them in the bathroom with you.
Right? Why not? Yeah. Why not?
There's a little human verification factor. Well, that looks like Jay's poop. So before we close the door on this, I will say, this is going to be all the major hardware manufacturers that are Microsoft partners. That includes Dell, Lenovo, Samsung, HP, Acer, and Asus. And of course, Microsoft's making their own hardware now. It'll be in that. So for now, it's going to be all of the, there are some smaller ones. We don't know if they're going to do it yet or not, but the big ones will. The stuff you go into Best Buy and get, right? Or Walmart.
Right. Absolutely, man.
Or wherever you buy your, I don't know,
Costco, wherever. Yeah, I mean, you can get them anywhere these days, man. You can Amazon. Just go to Amazon. You can get anything you want.
So on the other side of that, and I know it's a little, probably not as out of order as I thought, but Apple, of course, right? We've talked Windows. What about Apple? Well, Apple has become a little bit more of an us-two company of late. Right. There's no way they are not working on also doing something with AI built in to their hardware. And Tim Cook has commented, and I'm looking at, this is off of investors.com.
Well, they recently unloaded the whole car project specifically
Project Titan.
Right.
Yeah, whoops.
Specifically to free up the workforce that they have to work on what we're about to get into. And you're right. I mean, they've been more of a Me Too rather than the innovator, and we've talked about that over and over again on our other podcast. But this is right. So Apple's in this mix as well. So they're not going to be left behind. But it's kind of interesting here, and I'll let you get into it, Keith. But I crack up on you with the performance of Apple over the last, like, say, decade. How you were like all in, and then all of a sudden it's like, meh.
I've just always been I try to be objective.
Sure.
We all have stuff that we love, but I think that's a blinder. If you dive into that brand loyalty and go all in, it's not going to serve you well over time.
Right.
Hey, side note here for just a second, Jay. I feel a little bit like, Paul Schaefer, or, all that musical training. I got my laptop over here that I got, to share the screen share that you guys are seeing now. I got my monitor over here. I got another monitor over here. I got like my soundboard thing over here, and I'm literally like just. It's like the guy with 5 keyboards in on the Tonight Show. Letterman's. It's like I got one up here, and then I got the the Hammond over here if I need every time Dave says something I got to reach over and punch it.
In my best style of Paul, that's groovy, man.
Right. So anyway, yeah. So and this is coming from Tim Cook himself. This is a little less speculative than most people might think.
Big announcement coming, in June?
Yeah, and that's their developer conference, and they do highlight some new computer products during that time.
Right.
That's not the phone event, that's usually the computer event, right?
Correct.
Usually. This is a quote directly from Tim Cook. He says, "We believe in the transformative power and promise of AI, and we believe we have advantages that will differentiate us in this new era, including Apple's unique combination of seamless hardware, software, and services integration." Well, let's talk about that for just a second. What advantages could they have that we know about? First of all, they started making their own chipsets and their own processors.
That's right.
3 or 4 years ago now, and now they do make the whole, as they like to say it, the whole widget.
Yep.
So if they're already making their own processors and they're making their, that motherboard is 100% at this point designed by them, wouldn't it make sense for them to go ahead and make their own AI hardware and build it in?
Absolutely 100% agree with you on that. And here's the thing too, man. I remember us having a discussion. In fact, when I had to replace my MacBook Pro, you were pretty adamant about, man, give them a bit on the new chipsets. Right? And
just like a car, right? You're not going to go out there and buy the first model year they did it because they're usually plagued with issues.
Correct. And I think that there was a little bit of a negative connotation that you had going on with the conversation we were having, which was, I'm not real sure they should be doing this. But when you look back at it as to where we are right now in this industry, it seems to me that maybe they were playing the long game here with their chips, that maybe they knew what was coming down the pike, and it appeared as if they were not making a good move. And in all reality here, it looks like they may have.
Oh, there's no doubt they were up to that they at least had this much roadmapped, that they had 5 or 6 things on the roadmap, and this was one of them, and they then kind of explored the potential. And that's the thing you got to remember. Just like the car thing, like Project Titan, they had a dozen things that they were like, well, it could take us here, or it could take us there, or we could develop this. And 3 of those panned out.
Right.
And Apple's known to do that. So one of those things that they're working on right now is they want to get into partnership with OpenAI. Now, you guys on the consumer side know, if you've ever heard of ChatGPT, that's OpenAI. OpenAI is the founding company of ChatGPT. And Elon Musk is or was involved with OpenAI for a period of time. I don't know if he still is or not, but it's heavily speculated that Apple wants to partner with ChatGPT. So let's talk about this for a second, and let's go back to the Windows segment where we talked about them building AI chipsets in their hardware. Why would Apple care what some other AI platform company is doing and want and be interested in them? Any guesses, Jay?
No. Here, let me use AI to come up with an answer.
Right. There you go. So my speculation here is because AI has the database. They have the user data. They know they already have your search data.
Right.
That predictive algorithm that we talked about when you send text messages or you go on Pornhub or whatever site it is that, whatever your favorite porn site is, and it's making giraffe porn recommendations to you, that's coming from a database.
God, I can't imagine what my...
And if you've seen the documentary on Netflix about Pornhub, it's a fascinating documentary, we know that they keep those databases and that they are absolutely profiling. Okay,
they're watching you. All
So
you giraffe lovers, they're watching you.
When you use ChatGPT, you have to give them permission. You cannot use it without giving them permission to track you, watch what you do with it. It's true of any of the image generation tools also. I mean, even the ones that I used here, which were not ChatGPT, but you get the idea, right? So because Apple doesn't have that data on their own, partnering with somebody like ChatGPT...
It's no different than what we talked about in the automotive industry, where you've got all these automakers that are partnering with said software companies to develop the in-cabin experience, right? It's the same thing. Work with those who have what you need to get heads above the competition, right?
Yeah. And what does ChatGPT get in return for this partnership with Apple? Well, who's got the biggest user base out there?
That's right.
Who's got the most hardware in anybody's hands in the world? Apple, right?
Absolutely.
So, you got to feed the machine, right? You got to feed the algorithm.
That's right. That's interesting, man. And, and Apple has come out flat over the last several years, man, which is interesting. For me, they've been kind of underwhelming people, I think. And, this, the story is that, they're going to partner with them to improve some of the current stuff like Siri, and that's a laughable thing. I mean, that can't be the only thing. And I think that's
do you really care that your timer is a little bit better? Do you really care that
it doesn't matter? That's
honestly,
stuff,
man, it's gotten
worse.
More
to this. Yeah,
like especially the Amazon Echo stuff. We have a lot of the Alexa stuff. It's gotten worse. Like I used to be able to walk up and go, Alexa, who's your daddy? And I would get like a comical response, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, I was made in a lab by a team of developers. And it's like, yeah, that's not funny, man. I don't...
Right. Where'd your sense of humor go, right?
And that's just one... There's so many, like, I'll ask questions and I get, well, here's what I found on the internet. And it used to be a little bit better. I'm not sure why they dialed that back, but yeah, I don't think it's just going to be to better integrate your calendar with your phone and Siri. That's just not...
No, it's going to work with Siri. It has to work with Siri because that's part of the whole picture. But, it's funny that they picked that. That's been the headlines, to enhance Siri. We know there's something else going on, and it remains to be seen. There's so much secrecy that goes on. It is a very busy space, man, when it comes to that. And so... I'm interested in knowing and where we will be with this by the end of the year when we start seeing new models roll out and what's going to be there. Because HP and all these, all the other Microsoft guys are, they're already establishing those technologies. I think as right now you can buy this stuff with the new AI built into it, and so Apple's not yet rolled that stuff out. So next month here in June, we'll find out. So we'll see what their goal is and what their projections are.
So Jay, I think this is all. So the theme here is kind of data gathering, right? Like the
Absolutely.
more data that we give to AI, the better it gets at predictive algorithms. But is there a point when it doesn't need us, right? And so you've seen The Matrix, right?
Yes, I have.
And you remember, and this was the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept was basically that technology was keeping humans alive because it was able to replicate reality. It had gotten to that point without us being immersed in it.
Right.
And I just think it's fascinating that was so far-fetched,
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s, and yet it's really not that far-fetched today. Do you remember the first Office assistant also in the 90s? It was like a paperclip. It was called like Clippy.
I remember that, man.
Yeah, and they built it. They baked it.
I
into
wouldn't
like
have
Word.
remembered it until you just mentioned it.
And the
that's
joke
so...
was like there was a meme that circulated before memes even became a thing. It was like the first great use of email was we were all emailing each other this meme. And Clippy was like, I see that you're trying to write a suicide note. Would you like some help? Do you remember that meme?
I do, man.
Yeah, and it was like off the rails funny because at that time it was way too advanced for AI to, assist you with. But well, we're there, man. We're there.
Look, man. I mean, as we always say, life imitates art, and that is exactly what's going on here. And as you guys know, if you've listened to our other podcast, you will know that we're huge Trekkies, in anything like that. And gosh, I mean, go back and watch the original series. At some of the technology that they were using on the original series we're using it today. I mean, we haven't yet been able to kind of like transport ourselves, but only time, That's all it takes. Only time. I mean, there's some portals. I mean, didn't they just put a portal up in like New York City or something? And they had it, and the other side was over in Ireland. So the folks that came up to the portal in Ireland could see the folks in New York City, and yada yada. They had to pull them down. You know why? Because people were making lewd gestures.
Oh, it's.
I mean, you can't have anything, man.
Nothing has been in existence for more than 5 minutes before a fart joke hits it. Like that's just
exactly,
not.
Man.
That's not who we are, Alexander.
Right.
I'm pretty sure at the end of Alexander Graham Bell's first transmission, somebody was. I just come on, man. It's
right.
Yeah.
But do you think AI will ever get a sense of humor?
Well, that may be your human verification that you talked about earlier, right? Is can you tell a joke or can you recognize a joke?
Right. It's true. Poor old Alexa and poor old Siri just haven't got the humor anymore.
That'll be the Skynet. I mean, we're when we started this podcast, I thought, there's a chance it's not going to happen, and it's to the point now where it's like, man, it's probably going to happen. Everybody,
I think so. Maybe not in. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say maybe not in my lifetime because we're living longer, and the technology growth is exponential at this point. I mean, we are literally just. I mean, you just brought it up. I mean, Clippy from the 90s. I mean, when email started becoming the norm in business, and look where we're at now. I mean, I can access my email accounts on every single device that I own.
Yeah.
You can sync them across all of your devices, and I have 5 or 6 different devices. So wherever I'm at, whenever I need it, I can access it. Period.
Yeah.
No more. There's no more of that excuse. Well, I'm not in my office, so I don't have access to my email. Right? Those days are long gone, man. So I think it's almost an expectation anymore that you do have continued connectivity even after hours as someone in business.
Yeah, there
it's
is
an expectation,
that, and I will. I will draw boundaries at times if I know I'm going to be somewhere and go, hey, I'm going to be at my son's band concert or orchestra concert, and
Right.
I'm just going to be out of pocket for a few hours, or be driving. You can call me, but yeah, and I think it's that's a whole other podcast. But we got to get to the point of metrics, performance metrics, quality of work output, not just are you punching a clock. If you get your work done, it doesn't matter if you're offline for 3 hours in the middle of the day. That is shifting too. People are having like a afternoon break for 3 or 4 hours, and then they come back after dinner and plug back in.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Guys, if you've noticed as you're watching this podcast, for those of you that are watching and not necessarily listening, and if you're listening and you want to know what we're talking about, you must come over and watch this. But we have a nice little QR code there at the bottom of the screen there for you guys to get the audio podcast if you want it. And make sure you subscribe to our podcast, because all that, it helps us. It helps us. We're going to have some. Yeah, there you go. We're going to have some exciting brand partnerships coming through this, I think. Wasn't that kind of like our goal, is to kind of bring some new brand partners into this side of it as well?
It is now, if it wasn't.
Hey, let the cat out of the bag. But anyway, yeah, so make sure you subscribe to this podcast, please. We enjoy what we're doing, and we love bringing you information. It's just it's fun, just as much fun for us as it is for you.
Would like to say, by the way, if AI is listening and you want to recommend any potential good matches for brand partners, just go ahead and drop us a note.
Drop us leave a comment.
You already know how to find us, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So crazy surveillance that it's to the point, Jay, where nothing really surprises me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of surprises me.
Oh, I know where you're going with this, and I've got a story. So go ahead and we'll get into it, and I'll tell you what I know about this.
Well,
not this particular version, but
as you've already said,
I've
to let the cat
experienced
out of the bag, China's putting cameras on the moon.
God, man. Can you please repeat that? Make sure my brain computes what you just said.
China wants to build Skynet 2.0 and put cameras on the moon.
Okay, wait a minute. You just call it Skynet. Wait a minute. Wasn't there a movie out there with Skynet?
Yeah.
They're back. He said he would be back.
I mean,
he's back.
that series did not end well.
No.
For you guys that think life imitates art. That was not a good moral to the story there of giving AI and robotics too much control. So this is out of Times of India in New Delhi. And, China's so locked down and tight-lipped anyway that I don't know how much of this is true, but I would think that there are elements of truth in it.
Having been one traveled into China on many occasions.
Yeah.
And I can tell you firsthand, this, if it is true, in fact true, it does not surprise me.
So
because I've experienced Skynet number one.
Where does your story fit into this? Do you want to break into that, or do you want me to explain?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
The beginnings of this. Okay, so they have cameras absolutely everywhere in that country now. I mean, they had them before, but now it's just you can't go anywhere without being on camera somewhere. And these cameras all have face recognition technology. So,
now I have to ask, because I've not been.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to do like the dead presidents in Point Break and just walk around with a Richard Nixon mask on, is that allowed, or?
You would probably be removed.
Okay.
Or followed, or asked to leave the country, or potentially held. I'm just saying, because once you get into communist China, you're in their territory, man, and so you're under their jurisdiction. So you have to be very careful with that. I would say it's probably not wise to walk around with a Nixon mask in front of you. But here's what I can tell you is that traveling in country the years that I did, it was simple at first. Passport, hand it to them at security. They look at your face. They look at your picture. They look at your face. They give you weird looks. And you look back at them with a smile. And then they stamp your visa and passport, and away you go. You're in country, right? But everywhere you go, you had to stamp. You had to get a stamp. In or out, in or out, in or out. The last time I traveled, this was the craziest thing. I get into that portion of the trip where I am having to cross into communist China and hand them my passport, and they tell me to look up at this camera, and there's a screen by the camera so I can see myself, and it physically tells you to position your face in a certain way, and it's monitoring you, and it gets in, and you see all this stuff going on where they're physically getting the retina, everything about your facial features, everything, and then you have to both hands down, and they're reading every print on your hand and fingers and everything. That, guys, was back in 2018, and so now we're in 2024. So as quickly as they work with technology and anything that they do that they really want to do, I will guarantee you they are a long way away. And this whole thing about having cameras on the moon is not as far-fetched as you think it is. Just saying. Yeah, I love it, man. Now that I would totally do. Swayze. Yes. All right, man. I'm loving it.
All right, so...
But no Nixon. No Nixon.
Kidding aside, I think Okay, yeah, there's the obvious, like, they want to see what happens on the moon. It's kind of like the trail cam that you put in your backyard to catch, like, raccoons and armadillos and watch wildlife. There potentially could be some activity on the moon. You don't know. Have you been there?
I'm sure there's not any mice running around or, wildlife.
There could be something.
Anything, so.
There could be, something we don't, a few of us have seen. I don't know. I'm just saying. But there's also the possibility with some of these cameras that are good enough now that they could just use it to monitor our other countries' orbital devices, satellites, stuff floating around the Earth, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Or even pointed at. I don't know. You're on the moon. I don't think the cameras are good enough to see into my backyard from the moon yet, but they're not just pointed at the moon. That's my point.
No, they're not. There are other reasons behind this, guaranteed. And what they can't get with a balloon flying across the country, they'll get what they need from the moon.
Right.
They'll figure it out.
They're not going to quit trying just because they got caught the first time. That's not how this works, right?
No, not at all. They're a very persistent government, and they aim to be in charge. I think that's their goal here. And this whole thing with for as crazy as it sounded in the previous administration of coming up with a new leg of our armed forces, which is Space Force, everybody thought, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why in the world would you have a Space Force?
Sounded laughable.
This is the very reason why we have a Space Force. It's actually going to be utilized more and more as we progress forward. And conventional ground activity, let's face it, with what's going on, there are more drones being used in what's going on in the Middle East right now than have ever been used before. Not only air drones, but we're talking boats, ground, all of these things. And guys, that's all AI. That's all technology.
We know from the second Top Gun documentary that human
documentary. I love
pilots are on their way out. Right?
They are.
Just not today.
Joe, you were right. Just saying. And you know who I'm talking about.
So, all right. And at what point do we as workers get replaced by technology? And I think that's where we started the concept of this podcast episode with, and that's where we're going to end it with. And some of you will have heard this. Some of you prepare to have your mind blown. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't show up with some real life examples. But there's this thing out there called the dead internet theory, okay? And all of this is connected, and everything in this episode has really been connected. And when we kind of went through it and laid it out, I think we saw that it had kind of a natural relation amongst all of the topics, right? And so the dead internet theory basically is kind of like the Matrix, in the sense that, okay, Jay, you have a Facebook account, right? You know I hate Facebook. Okay.
I know you do. I hate it as well, but it's a necessary evil.
They have been guilty of this for a long time. And if you guys don't know this, those of you that are still on Facebook, a lot of what you're seeing in posts is not posted by real people. Now, yes, that post from your Aunt Gladys that's a picture of everybody at the family reunion from last week, that's real. Mm-hmm. Okay? But it's the in between the scrolls of Aunt Gladys posts where you see a picture of Patrick Swayze before he died, or, whatever. That's AI. Those are bot posts.
Right.
When Elon Musk took over, at that time, Twitter, it's now X, he famously made a proclamation that he was going to kill all the bots or die trying. Because Twitter had gotten so overrun with replies in feeds, posts, replies to your posts that were all AI, that were bots. That is happening today. It is becoming a growing problem. My son and I play Fortnite. We game together sometimes. We have a Twitch stream, Jay. Did you know that?
I do know that.
I don't even know how you know that. Okay.
You told me that.
Okay. Well, that would be, yeah. So
my kids have that as well, so.
We're Limitless. Shameless plug here. Limitless Legacy Duo. That's our Twitch stream. If you guys
awesome, man.
It's a completely different audience. That's not going to take anything from art, but I digress. So we'll be playing games like Fortnite, and my kid's friends will be on, and he'll go, "That's a bot. That's a bot." And I'll go, "How do you know?" And it's literally a guy running at us, and we're all shooting him. And he's like, "Well," and there's certain behaviors that they have because they haven't learned fully how an actual gamer would, for example, go to cover, or try to build to hide behind something, or, switch weapons. And a bot tends to kind of just be singularly focused. Well, why would the companies put bots in games that we're playing? Well, when you think about games like Fortnite, it takes 100 people in the session before it'll start.
Right.
If there's only 40, you have to sit there for 10, 15 minutes to get 100, or you throw 60 bots in there and you kick it off. And they can do that in seconds. Why would Facebook put a bunch of bots? Well, it adds content. It keeps you scrolling.
That's right.
It gets clicks. I mean, there's a million reasons. It adds views. If advertisers are tracking that, there are so many reasons. Go ahead. Yeah, I can hear it. I can hear it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, that reminds me of, we are the product.
Yep.
We are the product. Anytime an ad gets placed in front of us, that's a win. And that is exactly why the bots are being used, because so that they can put more in front of you to keep you in there, in that room, in that whatever space that you're in, long enough so that they can just get you that one more ad, and maybe you click on that ad,
And they continue to model your behavior. So again, there's this cycle of we need the humans to learn from them so that we can replicate them.
That's exactly right.
And this is conspiracy stuff, guys. Like, I'm not saying I'm all in on this dead internet theory thing, but the theory goes like this, that there is a majority of internet traffic today that is fake. Now, internet traffic could be Facebook posts, it could be YouTube video content, it could be Twitter posts, X posts, it could be...
This is very dangerous, man.
Yeah. And when you think about, okay, remember ChatGPT? We went back to Apple and we talked about when you sign up for ChatGPT, which I have done, you're giving it permission to monitor anything you put in it. The AI image generator model soft platforms, same thing. If you go in and you tell it that you want to see a giraffe with an extra short neck, I don't know why I'm stuck on giraffes today. It's going to remember that, and it's going to start to aggregate all of that data. Jay and I know from YouTube that the algorithm really likes you if it's all about watch time. Mm-hmm. And there's all these tricks that they put into videos to keep people from clicking away from them. Because the longer somebody watches, the better that video will trend. More people will watch it. It will watch it longer. That means they'll see more ads. That means Google makes more money. It's a cycle, right?
That's exactly right.
So wouldn't it be helpful to learn from humans so that you can keep them in their cocoon or whatever, like in the Matrix, and keep feeding that cycle?
That's right.
I think we're headed there. I really do.
Oh, well, it is said that the internet died in 2016. You know, that's the way I read that. And you know, it is a theory, which, speaking of theories, it kind of reminds me of a band I like out of South Carolina called Theory of a Dead Man.
Yeah.
They're really good.
I remember that band. Yeah.
Remember those guys? The whole first album was recorded in a basement, and it was their own deal, and it was good enough to sell. Anyway, you know, it's a scary. This is very scary. This is eye opening. And you look at some of the things from 2016 to now, where we're at today, that have occurred. And, you know, and there is accusations and or theories that the government has, you know, used this to gaslight us, to push narratives, to change directions of the way you think. And it's very dangerous because it's hard for the human to sometimes differentiate fake and reality. And the use of bots, AI, on these platforms, I have talked to people that are also on Facebook. Many people that are on Facebook. There are no two feeds typically the same.
Right. That's right.
And it is completely based on your habits and your habits alone. But
I cannot wait to see the number of giraffe ads that I get.
Right, this is going to be so funny, man.
Right,
I know,
yeah.
It's crazy. But you know, it's very dangerous, and it's very scary to me. And that's why, you know, I said in the beginning of this podcast that we're going to have to figure out a way to police this in a manner that humans are protected. But again, AI can't learn without us.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's too late. I don't think it is.
The learning cycle is called large language models. That goes back to, remember Alan at the beginning of this episode where, you know, he sounded pretty real and we were talking about that. The first, second, third generations of those did not sound real. And they have gotten enough data from enough people that it learns your inflections, it learns when and why and how you respond the way you do. And then there's age differences, right? Like the kid, you know, there was a generation, you know, not the current young generation, but, you know, the ones now that are kind of, I guess, millennials, where everything ended with a question and it was like this, and it drove me crazy because everything was inflected up, even when it wasn't a question. right?
You do that way too damn good, man.
And it's just from hanging around those people. And it's from
Right.
hanging around those people. And anyway, but it can learn that, right? And so it needs us to... This is a true statement, that we are needed for AI to continue to learn through those large language models. A lot of this comes back to a report that was released by the security firm Imperva back in 2016, which is what Jay referenced, where it said, I think at that time, 52% of all web traffic was bot traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if that was the case in 2016, what is it today?
What is it
right?
today? Yeah. I'd like to see those numbers if anybody has them. That would be interesting.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Shrimp Jesus. So all of this can be, so there's another side to this coin, which is it's for power. And somebody somewhere is pulling the levers. And the more that large language model is able to learn about us and our behaviors and the way that we respond to certain things, the better that it's going to be able to manipulate those behaviors. So that said, this can be used by governments. It can be used politically. It can be used by marketing firms to get you to buy their products. Chuck, are you listening? Chuck, are you listening? So we are a commodity in some respects. And there is value in being able to manipulate groups of people on Facebook to call them to action, people on Twitter or X to call them to action, people on YouTube and call them to action. And don't kid yourself if you think that there isn't temptation there. And way back in the beginning of this podcast, we talked about people getting fired from their jobs at Google and some of these other places over ethics and complaining about ethics violations. And so I'm just trying to connect the dots for you guys while I'm still here and before I get replaced.
And let me tell you how impactful this technology is in that regard. You know, I can think of a recent event that really, really stirred the internet up like crazy, and that was the eclipse. And it was all of this conspiracy theory about the eclipse was going to, it created an X across the U.S., and there was going to be massive earthquakes. There was going to be this. There was going to be that. And the more you dug into the hole and got deeper and deeper, the more they kept feeding you. And I've never seen so much activity about the solar eclipse in regards to biblical references, in regards to astrological references, all of those things, to the point to where there were people that were pushed to do things that they normally would not have been. And I'm speaking of the one creator that believed that the world was, going to be seeing something major happen, and ended up throwing her children out of a moving car, I think, and ended up, just sick, man. This is the dangerous side of this stuff. And there's a psychological effect here where everyone needs to keep themselves in check and to try to kind of comprehend what is real and what isn't. And, if you're getting it off of Facebook, I ain't talking to you, man. You got to come to me with some real data. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time understanding that anything on Facebook is true. So.
Yeah, agreed. There are still groups on Facebook that are useful, whether those are, closed groups like car clubs or buy-sell trade groups or
food clubs, yeah.
And that's different. Like
Flowers.
I've gone into some of those groups to ask questions about,
porn.
whatever your
giraffes,
whatever. Yeah,
giraffes,
right,
yeah.
exactly. Whatever your.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, I have a question about my latest giraffe fantasy. And anyway, so before I end up altering the course of this podcast to be less about the dead internet theory and more about giraffes, I think it's probably time to shut it down.
Shut her down.
You guys know what to do. Part of the reason that we are back for season 2 is because we saw the listens and views. Oh, Jay, bring that, man. That thing lays an egg. Jay, if you're not watching this, you need to go over on our main YouTube channel at youtube.com/Parts Counter Gurus. It's CJ's Show and Tell. That's all I'll say. It's cool. It's as fidget devices go, that one wins. It is the best fidget device I've seen.
There's a story behind it, so wait for the next episode.
Okay, well, there you go. That's if there was never incentive to come back, you have it now.
Yeah. Forget the giraffes. Here's Cocky.
Yeah, right. There you go. Oh, wow.
Actually, Cocky can't lay eggs.
It's true. Well,
I don't know. In this day and time,
here we go.
It's
Yeah,
possible,
right.
yeah.
So just keep doing what you did. We appreciate all the subscriptions and listens and now views, as it will probably be available in video form. And you got anything else to add, Jay?
No, man. I'm excited to dive deeper in this season. We'll continue. I'll just say this: we're gonna be very specific with our episodes this season to try to obviously be a little bit more focused on more so as things roll out, the progression of this technology, to try to kind of keep you up to date in that manner, which we did last year, but we've got a lot of exciting things that are supposed to be happening this year, so we want to keep our finger on the pulse, and so like the Big Apple event coming up in June, and there'll be a few others. So, and I got some equipment failing, so I'm probably going to be buying one of these new ones, and maybe we'll review it and we'll talk about it. So just stay tuned to that. That's kind of where we're going with this. So
there you go. So
right.
we will we'll be back. See what I did there?
We'll be back.
Or maybe we won't, and it'll be a version of us, but you'll never know.
That's
the best part. If it's gotten to that, you're just going to feed the machine anyway. Until that happens, thank you guys, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace out.